Do you have canned food stacked in your pantry, maybe deep in your basement or lining shelves in the garage? Good, you should. Canned goods are the backbone of any serious long-term food storage plan. They are often inexpensive, universally available, and perhaps most importantly, they are inherently shelf-stable. They require zero preparation and almost zero effort to store, which is why preppers like me rely on them so heavily. But here is the truth that separates the amateurs from the professionals. If you treat canned food storage like a set-it-and-forget-it system, you are making a mistake that could cost you much more than just a ruined meal. It could cost you your health, or worse. The difference between a can that sustains you for a decade and a can that delivers a potentially lethal dose of bacteria is often invisible to the naked eye, and it usually comes down to small, overlooked details in your storage environment and rotation plan. For years, I believed canned food was bulletproof. I used to just toss them on the cold concrete floor of my old root cellar. What a massive rookie error that was. And believe me, I paid the price for that lack of knowledge in spoiled goods and wasted money. I'm here today to tear down the myths and deliver 11 truths about storing canned food for years. These are not tips. These are non-negotiable rules for longevity, drawn from over a decade of personal experience and deep dives into food science. We are going beyond the basic check for bulges advice. We're talking about optimizing your stockpile so that when you need it most, you are pulling out safe, nutritious, life-sustaining calories. Let's dive straight in with truth number 1, which tackles the biggest lie in food preservation.
Truth 1. Safety versus nutrition. The infinite shelf life myth. The first truth you must internalize is that canned food does not have an infinite shelf life, despite what some old-school preppers might claim. Yes, canned goods are often safe to eat decades past the printed best-by date, but safety is not the same as quality or nutritional value. The canning process itself is designed to create a commercial, sterile environment within the sealed can, meaning all pathogenic microorganisms, like Clostridium botulinum, are destroyed, leaving a vacuum-sealed environment that keeps new contaminants out. This environment means that if the seal remains intact, the food inside remains protected from the external world. That's the safety aspect. And yes, people have eaten canned rations from World War I that were technically safe. However, nutrition is a different beast entirely. We are talking about two main classes of nutrients: the macronutrients, proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. These tend to remain relatively stable over very long periods. In a survival scenario, you will still get your foundational proteins and carbs, even from very old stock. But then you have the micronutrients, specifically vitamins. Vitamins, especially water-soluble ones like C and B complex, degrade rapidly over time. They're vulnerable to trace amounts of oxygen, heat exposure, and chemical reactions with the metal and the residual liquid inside the can. While your canned peas from 10 years ago might still offer calories and protein, the vitamin C content will be drastically reduced, if not completely gone. This is crucial because if you rely entirely on canned storage for years, you must compensate for this massive vitamin deficit elsewhere, perhaps with reliable supplements or growing your own survival garden. What does this mean for your rotation strategy? It means you shouldn't just aim to keep the food safe. You should be aiming to keep the nutritional value as high as possible. If you want maximum nutritional benefit, you should rotate your stock so that you consume it within a year or two past the best-by date. After that, it shifts from optimal nutrition to purely caloric survival food. Remember, the goal isn't just to survive the first year, it's to thrive in the years that follow. Are you prioritizing short-term nutrition or long-term calorie stability? This is a question only you can answer, but understanding the trade-off is the first step in sophisticated prepping. Now, you and I both know that thinking about long-term storage, rotation schedules, and deep nutritional dives can feel absolutely overwhelming, especially if you're just starting to build up your foundational stock. I remember back in 2014 when I was struggling to scale up my supplies beyond a couple of weeks, I wasted so much money on the wrong foods. It was confusing and expensive. By the way, because I know how overwhelming prepping can feel and how confusing it is to figure out where to start without breaking the bank, I put together a free resource for you. It's the exact guide I wish I had when I started prepping. The free guide reveals how to turn $50 into a 90-day food supply for when life gets unpredictable. This isn't some generic checklist. This guide shows you exactly how to build your family's food security and peace of mind with a simple, proven plan. No experience or big budget needed. We talk about cans, of course, but we look at the whole picture. What is included in this free guide? It includes the exact $50 shopping list that feeds your family for 90-plus days. And yes, I even include specific brands and current prices. You'll get 37 essential preparedness items most people never think to stockpile. And trust me, item number 23 will surprise you. Plus, I revealed the simple storage trick that works in any home or apartment. Emergency meals you can make with zero cooking fuel or electricity required, and even the gas station snack that can be used for bartering. We also cover step-by-step guide for scaling up from 1 week to 3 months with confidence, specific storage strategies to keep your supplies organized and fresh for years, and the one oil that stays shelf-stable and safe long-term. This entire resource is all yours for free. Just let me know where to send it. The link is right down in the description below, and I've pinned it in the comments. Go grab it when this video is over. It complements everything we are talking about today, giving you the full plan. Now, let's jump back into our crucial truths, starting with the environment, because the way you store your cans matters more than the cans themselves.
Truth 2. Rust doesn't start on the can, it starts on the floor. If you listen to nothing else I say about canned food storage, listen to this. Do not store your cans directly on a concrete floor. I learned this the hard way, back when I lost an entire stack of chili to base corrosion. Concrete, especially in basements or garages, is hydrophilic. It loves water. It constantly wicks moisture up from the ground, even if the floor appears dry. When a can sits on that concrete, that cold, damp surface draws moisture to the base of the can. This creates the perfect environment for slow, silent corrosion to begin. That corrosion, that rust, compromises the metal integrity, leading to pinhole leaks that allow contaminants in or contents out. You end up with sticky residue or a small puddle, and by the time you see it, the can is worthless. The solution is incredibly simple. Elevate your stock. Even a thin layer of wood, heavy-duty shelving, plastic pallets, or even large pieces of cardboard can break the contact between the can's metal and the concrete's moisture. You need air circulation underneath and around the cans. Think about how a stack of wood is stored outside. It's always slightly off the ground. Your canned goods deserve the same respect. This principle extends to humidity control overall. Canned goods should be stored in a cool, dark area, ideally between 50 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Excessive humidity, which is common in basements, means that even cans stored on shelving will eventually start to rest on the exterior. If you are storing thousands of dollars worth of supplies, investing in a decent dehumidifier is not a luxury. It is a critical piece of preservation equipment. Maintaining relative humidity below 50% will drastically extend the lifespan of the metal itself. The goal here is total environmental control. Rust is the enemy. Water is the accomplice. Don't let them win.
Truth 3. The critical dent test. Dents are confusing because not all dents are created equal. You see a can with a dent and your first instinct is to toss it. But wait, let's look closer. There are 3 types of dents, and only one of them is immediately life-threatening. First, slight body dents. If a can has a small, shallow indentation on the main body of the container, often caused by dropping it in the aisle or knocking it over, it's usually fine for short-term consumption. This does not necessarily compromise the vacuum seal or the integrity of the protective lining. When I drop a can, I mark it with a big "Eat First" note and move it to the front of my working pantry. I would never stockpile it for long-term storage, but it's not immediately bad. Second, sharp dents. These are bad news. A sharp dent creates localized stress on the metal, potentially causing microfractures in the lining, even if the seal itself looks intact. This can expose the food to the metal, speeding up degradation or corrosion, especially with acidic foods, which we'll talk about next. If the dent is sharp enough to create a crease or fold, I toss it or immediately use it within the day. It's not worth the risk for long-term stock. And third, and this is the critical one, dents along the seams. Cans have seams along the side and at the top and bottom where the lid is crimped onto the body. Any dent, even a slight one, that occurs on or near these seams is an immediate failure risk. The double seam structure is what maintains the hermetic seal. If that seam is damaged, even slightly, the integrity is compromised and you have a pathway for botulism spores or other bacteria to enter. If a seam is involved, you absolutely must not use it for long-term storage. And honestly, if you can't trust it, you should throw it out. Don't wait, don't chance it. A bulging can is obviously bad, but a seam dent is the subtle, silent warning that demands the same reaction.
Truth 4. The acidic time clock is real. If you plan to store canned goods for years, meaning 5 years or more, you need to understand pH levels. Not all canned foods last the same amount of time. High-acid foods break down faster than low-acid foods. This is the acidic time clock. What are high-acid foods? Think tomatoes, tomato sauce, fruit, and foods packaged in vinegar or citrus. The natural acidity starts interacting with the interior lining of the can over time. While modern cans are much safer than the old lead-soldered cans from before the 1990s, they still use protective coatings, often a lacquer or polymer lining to prevent the metal from reacting with the contents. When highly acidic food is stored, the acid slowly eats away at that lining. Once the metal is exposed, the acid reacts with the tin or steel, leading to a metallic, off-putting taste. More dangerously, this reaction can produce trace amounts of metals leaching into the food. While studies vary on the health impact, it absolutely ruins the taste. But here is the real prepper concern. As the lining degrades, the corrosive action can eventually start to eat away at the can body itself, potentially leading to pinholes, leaks, and a compromised seal. The actionable truth here is your high-acid foods need a much tighter rotation schedule. While low-acid foods like canned beans, corn, or meat might safely last 5 to 7 years, and often much longer, high-acid foods like diced tomatoes, pineapple, or peaches should ideally be rotated every 12 to 18 months. If you simply must store high-acid foods for the long term, consider alternatives. Back in 2016, I shifted entirely to canning my own tomato products in glass jars. Glass is inert and doesn't react with the acidity, bypassing the entire lining problem. If you rely on store-bought items, prioritize the consumption of your canned fruits and tomato products much sooner than your canned vegetables. This proactive management prevents spoilage and keeps your precious stock safe. Truth 5. The temperature zone of eternal storage. I've already mentioned the ideal temperature range: cool, dark, and between 50 degrees Fahrenheit and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. But the truth is, most people fail not because their average temperature is too high, but because their temperature fluctuates wildly. This is the hidden killer in storage. Temperature cycling, the repeated warming and cooling of the can, causes stress on the container. Think about that can of chili sitting in your hot garage. It might hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit during the day and drop to 60 degrees Fahrenheit overnight. Here is the science. Metal, liquid, and gas all expand and contract at different rates. When a can heats up, the contents and the metal expand. When it cools down, they contract. This repeated thermal cycling puts immense stress on the weakest points of the can, the seams. Over years of seasonal changes, this stress can fatigue the metal and the sealant compounds, leading to microscopic seam failure long before you ever see a visible bulge. It's a slow, progressive damage. This is why garages, sheds, or attics are the absolute worst places for long-term canned food storage. These areas experience the most extreme temperature swings. Basements, interior closets, or dedicated cellars where the temperature holds steady year-round are infinitely better. Consistency is king. If you can maintain 60 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, your cans will far outlast the same products stored in a fluctuating environment, even if the fluctuating environment averages 60 degrees Fahrenheit. The average doesn't matter, the stability does.
If you absolutely must use a garage, you need to insulate your storage area heavily. Use insulated cabinets or coolers to dampen the daily temperature swings. But even then, rotate that stock aggressively, treating those cans like short-term storage rather than deep pantry staples. Truth 6. The secret weapon is organization. The FOFO method. Everyone knows the basic rule of rotation, FIFO, or first in, first out. You use the oldest stuff first. Simple. But for a serious prepper, we go beyond simple FIFO. We use the FOFO method. First off, first out of the shelf. Here's the difference. FIFO just tells you which can to eat next. FOFO integrates the rotation directly into your purchasing and stocking habits, maximizing efficiency and minimizing the risk of losing track of dates. The truth is, rotation often fails because it's a chore. You buy new cans, you put them wherever they fit, and then 3 months later, you realize you have a mountain of new cans blocking your access to the older ones. With FOFO, every purchase dictates a rotation action. When I bring home new cans, I don't just put them in the back. I pull the existing oldest cans completely off the shelf, the first off, and those cans are designated as the next meals for my immediate, non-prepper daily cooking, the first out. This means my pantry is always stocked with the newer items at the back, and the oldest items are physically separated and prioritized for use. To make FOFO work, you need two things, a Sharpie and an integrated staging area. First, the Sharpie. Trying to read the tiny, often faded, embossed date on a can is a fool's errand. As soon as I buy a case of cans, I use a permanent marker to write the month and year of purchase clearly and boldly on the lid or side. This allows for rapid inventory checks even from a distance. Second, the staging area. I keep my deep storage separate from my working pantry. When I stock new goods, I cycle the oldest deep storage items into the working pantry staging area. This ensures that only food designated for immediate consumption is mixed with my daily groceries, keeping the long-term stock pristine and organized. If your system relies on you remembering dates or pulling cans out from under a precarious stack, it's going to fail. FOFO forces you to consume and replace, making rotation a habit, not a burden. Truth 7. Modern coatings hide past dangers. We briefly touched on can construction, but it's a truth that requires deeper examination. For years of storage, you need to know what's protecting your food from the metal itself. The first major danger in older cans was lead. Before the 1990s, many cans were soldered using lead, which could leach into the contents, especially with acidic foods. If you somehow acquire canned goods that are truly decades old, perhaps military surplus or antiques, you are facing a real health hazard from heavy metals. While a bite of lead-contaminated food might be better than starvation, it's a severe risk to long-term health, and you should avoid these old cans at all costs. The second major danger, which we faced in the 2000s and 2010s, was bisphenol A, or BPA. BPA was widely used as a liner in many cans to prevent corrosion and protect the food. However, BPA is an endocrine disruptor. It mimics estrogen and leaches into the food, which is hormonally bad for you. The good news is that due to consumer pressure, most major brands have shifted to BPA-free linings. But here is the critical truth. BPA-free doesn't mean chemical-free. It just means they substituted BPA with a different polymer, often BPS or BPF. While these alternatives are currently considered safer, they are still plastic derivatives, and there is ongoing research into their long-term stability and leaching rates, particularly under adverse conditions like high heat. What's the actionable takeaway? You need to know your brands. If you are deeply concerned about chemical exposure during long-term storage, look for foods that are packed in glass or Tetra Paks, or prioritize brands that use all-resin or polyester-based linings, which are considered the safest non-BPA options currently available. When purchasing canned meats, which are often the most valuable long-term staple, look for brands like Keystone, which famously use minimal ingredients, often just meat, salt, and water, and prioritize clean canning processes. Salt is an electrolyte, and that's a nutrient you need. For years of storage, Minimize contact between the food and any complex chemical lining.
Truth 8. Pull tops are the weakest link. I love the convenience of a pull-top can. In an emergency, not having to fumble for a can opener is a massive time saver. But convenience comes at a cost. Pull-top cans are structurally weaker and more prone to failure than standard sealed cans. The seal on a standard can is a continuous, rolled seam designed to withstand significant internal and external pressure variations. The seal on a pull-top, however, incorporates a score line and an affixed tab mechanism. That score line is the failure point. Studies consistently show that pull-top cans are more likely to fail, meaning they are more prone to micro-leaks or bursting under extreme pressure or stress than traditional cans. The military understands this fundamental flaw. Outside of very specific rations, militaries worldwide generally avoid pull-top containers for field use and long-term storage precisely because of this increased vulnerability. If the best-funded, most rigorous storage experts avoid them, why should you rely on them? This is why, if you're looking for long-term deep storage, cans you genuinely expect to survive for 5, 10, or even 20 years, you must prioritize the traditional non-pull-top can. If you already have pull-tops, treat them gently. Don't stack them high. While regular cans might be stacked 3 or 4 high, pull-tops should be handled with extreme care and kept to minimal stacking, perhaps 2 high at most, to prevent accidental stress on that vulnerable seal. Pull-tops should be the first cans you rotate out and use in your regular cooking. They are survival convenience items, not long-term storage champions.
Truth 9. Vacuum integrity whispers. A bulging can is screaming at you that it's bad. But what about a can that hasn't bulged yet, but is on the brink of failure? You need to learn how to check the vacuum integrity of a can using more than just your eyes. This is a subtle truth, but one that can save you from opening a potentially catastrophic container. First, the tap test. Take the can and tap the top gently with your knuckle. A properly sealed can with a strong vacuum will produce a dull, solid thud. A compromised can, which might have lost some of its vacuum or developed internal gas due to spoilage, will sound higher-pitched, hollow, or tinny. Practice this on a new can and then an older can to calibrate your ear. Second, the lid check. Many modern cans have a slight concave appearance on the lid due to the internal vacuum sucking the metal inward. Run your thumb across the lid. If the lid is perfectly flat, or worse, convex, bowed outward, even slightly, you have internal pressure buildup, a massive red flag for spoilage. If you can depress the lid easily with your thumb and then it pops back, that vacuum seal is failing and the can is unsafe. This subtle pop is often a precursor to a visible bulge. Third, the opening hiss. If you decide to open a suspect can, listen carefully. A healthy, properly preserved can will usually release a small, audible burst of air sucking inward as the seal is broken. That's the sound of the vacuum being released. If, however, you hear a loud hiss or a release of air pushing outward, like a soda bottle being opened, that is the sound of gas buildup, a clear indication of bacterial activity, often botulism. If that happens, do not taste the food. Do not even sniff it intensely. Toss it immediately and safely. That loud hiss is the food screaming its contamination warning. These physical checks are critical for older stock, where the date is long past.
Truth 10. Your can opener must be simple and plentiful. This truth isn't about the cans themselves, but the mechanism required to access them. The moment the power goes out, your beloved electric can opener becomes a useless piece of decorative plastic. The essential truth is that redundancy and simplicity save lives. You must have multiple, dependable, manual can openers. I keep at least 3 types distributed across my home and bug-out gear. 1. The crank opener. The traditional large crank-style opener. While effective, they are bulky and rely on precision gears. They're great for the kitchen, but not the field.
2. The P38/P51 military openers. These are the gold standard for survival. They are tiny, robust, and virtually indestructible pieces of stamped metal. They take practice to use efficiently. They are a pain the first few times you try it, but once you master them, they work every time on every can. I link to the ones I trust below, the good old-fashioned military type. They are cheap enough to scatter everywhere, in every car, every pack, and every trauma kit. 3. Improvised methods. What if you lose all your openers? The final layer of preparedness is knowing how to open a can without specialized tools. The truth is, the can seal is only around the outer lip. You can take the can, turn it upside down, and vigorously rub the sealed edge on a rough, flat rock or piece of concrete. The friction will wear down that seal until the lid pops right off. It takes serious elbow grease, but it works, and it's a non-negotiable skill for deep survival prepping. Don't neglect the simplest tool needed to access your supplies. Stock up on manual openers and practice with them regularly.
Truth 11. Heating protocol is a lifesaver. In a long-term grid-down situation, eating a cold can of ravioli might sustain you, but a warm meal can do wonders for morale. The final truth concerns how you safely heat canned food, because doing it incorrectly can turn a safe meal toxic or even explosive. Never place a sealed can directly into an open fire or on extreme direct heat. Why? 2 reasons. First, fire and extreme heat rapidly break down the interior can lining. Even if you don't care about the leaching chemicals in the apocalypse, the heat can instantly degrade the integrity of the food and its taste. Second, and far more dangerous, is the pressure. Cans are designed to hold pressure during the original retort process, but that pressure is carefully regulated. Placing a sealed can in a fire causes the internal contents to heat far too fast. The liquid inside turns to steam, the pressure skyrockets, and the can becomes a small bomb, capable of spraying boiling hot, contaminated food everywhere. This is an unnecessary and dangerous risk. The correct, safe heating protocol is the water bath method. 1. Open the can. This is non-negotiable. First, fully open the can, or at the very least, remove the lid entirely to vent pressure. I prefer to empty the contents into a separate cooking vessel, like a pot, to heat it properly. 2. The bath. If you must heat the contents in the can, place the open can into a separate pot containing boiling water. The water acts as a buffer, regulating the heat and preventing direct flame contact. This method ensures the food warms slowly and evenly without stressing the metal or the lining. If you are cooking over a fire, empty the can into a metal pot or skillet. Heating directly over flames is simply not worth the risks to your health or safety when your resources are already limited. Prioritize safety and utility over convenience. We have covered immense ground today, from the nutritional compromise of long-term storage and the dangers of acidic foods, to the silent signals of a failing seal and the non-negotiable importance of manual can openers. Remember, canned goods are the best food to stockpile. They're the foundation of any serious long-term preparation strategy, but their longevity is entirely dependent on your diligence in storage and rotation. Being a prepper isn't about accumulating stuff. It's about knowing the truth behind how that stuff works and how to keep it viable for years. If this has helped you refine your food storage plan in any way, I ask you to please like this video, subscribe to Zach of All Trades for more real, practical strategies, and share this with anyone you know who relies on canned food. We want to reach more people with actionable, helpful knowledge. Finally, if you found this insightful, but you still feel overwhelmed by the sheer scale of starting or optimizing your supplies, remember the free guide I created. If you haven't grabbed it yet, the link is below in the description and pinned in the comments. It's the free guide reveals how to turn $50 into a 90-day food supply. It includes that exact $50 shopping list and all the critical steps for scaling up your food security with confidence.
Go download that guide now. I'm Zach, and as always, stay prepared, stay practical, and I will see you next time.